Hi, let's talk about vector tracing. We've all had a situation, probably numerous times, when a customer will send us something like this and say, here's my logo, I found it on Google. And copyright issues aside, you can see that this is not going to be suitable for printing. Let's zoom in here and you can see this is very low resolution, and it might look okay on the monitor when you zoom out, but when you print that on a shirt or whatever you're printing, or even try and reproduce it for web graphics or something of that nature, it isn't going to print well. It's going to have that sawtooth kind of bitmapped edge where the pixels are defining the edge rather than a smooth vector line. So what we want to do is recreate this as a vector, assuming we can't get this clip art. In this case, this was clip art that I found on a free website, so I could easily just download that and use it if it was something I had permission to use. But let's say we can't find, let's say this is all we have. How many times have you heard that? This is all I have. So depending on how much work you want to do on a project, you might want to redraw this. Now, drawing programs all have a auto trace program or auto trace feature. This happens to be CorelDraw, but as usual I don't show my toolbars most of the time because I don't want this to have to be specific to one drawing program. The techniques we're going to talk about today will be fine with CorelDraw, Adobe Illustrator, or the free program Inkscape, which is a very good program. Let's see what happens when we auto trace this using the default settings. This is like I said, CorelDraw, so it's called Power Trace, and let's see how that comes out. Now I don't like that. You can see that because of the extreme low resolution, it doesn't really come out the way we want it to. So while auto trace might work for some things, for this one I'm not going to use it. Instead I'm going to just go ahead and retrace this. Of course this is a complex object. It would take me an hour or more to do the whole thing, so I'm not going to do that on the video. We're just going to do part of it, and I think I'll do his mouth down here, this black part of his mouth. We're going to do that as one object, and let's see how we might work with this. I'll zoom in here, and then I'm going to start with this part of his mouth right where I'm hovering here. I'm not going to do this part, I'm going to do that later, and I'm going to do this little thing here later too. You'll find that sometimes it's easier to draw individual parts of an object, and then you can always weld everything together or combine it depending what you what you're doing. So let's start tracing this, and I'll show you how I might work with it. I'll be working with my Bezier tool here. You can use your pen tool as well. For this procedure, they're going to do pretty much the same thing. And I'm going to start by just putting a node right on the points here. Like I said, I'm going to ignore that thing for now, and I'm going to ignore this part here. So I'm just going to do this. So just on the outside points, like this. His teeth. Let's go down here, and let's go back up to here. I'm making this red so we can see what we're doing. And now that that's a closed path, I can fill it in red, get rid of that outline. Actually, I'm going to make it orange. What I want to do is be able to see it against that black. So I'm going to give it a transparency so I can see through it. Okay, now it's easy to see what I am doing. Okay, now I'm going to add some more nodes here, and what I'm going to do now is put nodes. If you follow this curve around, you can sort of imagine trying to shape this out. And I'm thinking I could get one here and probably reproduce that curve, put another one here. Every place you think you're going to have to manipulate a curve, you want to put a node in. You don't want too many. If you've watched some of my other videos, you know that I do not like to use any more nodes than I have to. So I'm going to put one here, I'm going to put one here, and I'm going to put one right here. Now you don't have to be real careful at this point because we're going to be shaping this out. But you can see I'm adding nodes all along the perimeter here where I think I'm going to be shaping some curves. So put one there, leave that how it is, put one here. I'm just going to draw this solid black here. Put a node here. I'll put one more in here. I think I can do that. If I can't, I can always add one later. One more here and one more here. Okay, now these are all straight lines, and these are all, of course, cusp nodes. If you don't know what a cusp node is, that's a node that you can shape each side of the line independent of the other side, as opposed to a smooth node where you move one side, the other one moves too. There are different reasons for using both, but for now we're going to leave these all as cusps. I'm going to marquee select this and change these to curves. Now, this is still straight lines because I haven't done anything yet, but now they're curves, and we can manipulate this object however we please. So let's get started. That may have jumped a bit. When I paused it, I added two more in here. Apparently I forgot. Okay, so now select this, and this is my pick tool. Sorry, forgive me, this is my shape tool, not my pick tool. Now I can grab this line here without adding a node and just pull it up till it follows that curve. And I can do that over here too. Like I said, we'll shape this out real nicely when we're finished with this preliminary part, but I can just follow these curves here. We'll zoom in a minute, get this all shaped out. But for now I just want to rough this up, rough it out. And so I'm just following along, shaping it out. And as you can see, we're just drawing this black thing. We'll add that white tongue and everything in later. I won't do it on this video because once you get the hang of this, you'll be able to do the whole tiger. But you obviously don't want to watch me do the whole thing. Okay, so that's pretty much roughed out. And I'm going to zoom in here so I can really get the shape the way I want it to look. You can work on this as much as you want, depending on what the project is for. Let's zoom in on this part here and see what we're doing. Alright, I'll go here. I'm going to shape this out a little bit. This is good enough, good enough. Zoom in and out as necessary. Not only do you need to use the line itself to shape it out, you can also use the control arrows here. Kind of liking most of this the way it is. I'm not going to work real hard on it because this doesn't have to be exact because it's sort of an abstract shape, so you can make it as exact as you want. Alright, now you can see that some of these, we talked about cusps and smooth nodes a moment ago. Some of these should remain cusps. That's a cusp. That's going to be remain a cusp. So is that. But then some of the other ones like this, I want it to be a smooth curve. And I can do that by selecting smooth on my menu, or I can just, in CorelDraw at least, click the C key, and that changes that node to a smooth node. There we go. So I'm going to go around and change the ones that should be smooth to smooth nodes. And if it jumps too much when you do that, you might want to sort of work your arrows a little bit. Alright, I'm going to leave that as a cusp. I'm going to go smooth here. I'm going to go smooth here, here, here. Now here where my arrows cross, I don't know if you can see that. I don't like the arrows to cross. It makes the line, it gives the line a weird look, and it doesn't always behave the way you want it to. So don't cross any arrows. Okay, now I'll take away my transparency here. And now I can sort of see a couple places where I might want to work a little bit harder on it. But for all intents and purposes, that's going to be good enough for what I'm doing. And now we have the beginning of our tiger drawing. And you can see, if we were going to do the whole thing, which you might want to do after you watch this for an exercise, is just click this tiger, download it to your clipboard, and import it into your drawing program, and begin tracing it. You can see how I've traced his mouth here. My next step would be to trace the white tongue as a separate object and put it in there. And then I'd have to go around and do all these stripes and his fur and his ears and everything. And before long I'd have the whole thing done, and it would be vector object, which means obviously I can enlarge this as much as I like without any loss in quality, because it is not represented by pixels, it's represented by control nodes and lines. So this is all smooth lines. I can make this 100 feet tall if I want, and it'll still look the same. So that's the beginning of this drawing, and that's the way you shape an object out. So find an object that you would like to practice with. You could use this one if you like, or you can find something else that you prefer to work with just for practice. And you'll want to practice with smooth and cusp nodes. You'll want to practice manipulating your lines using the line, or using your control arrows. They do similar things but not the exact same thing. And you'll be using both often for many different things. Alright, so that's the way you work with a vector tracing. Practice this and become familiar with the techniques, and I hope your next project goes well.